Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on Laid Back the Rosinga podcast. Our topic for this week is Let's Move, a BAME awareness. And our guest for this week is Dr. Janet Ige, who is a senior lecturer in public health and also a public health lead in one of the local authorities here in the UK. Hello, Janet. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. First of all, let's start by, let me ask you, is this your first podcast?
I think so, I'm afraid so.
Fair. So, considering this is your first podcast, what are your expectations?
It's just the questions you're going to throw at me. I'm just trying to be prepared for them. But, it's a laid-back conversation. So I'm looking forward to it, to be fair, and just discussing what the challenges are and also talking about personal experiences. I hope we can share our experiences of physical activity and how we can encourage one another.
Okay, fair. But first and foremost, let's start by congratulating you on your PhD. What was it like multitasking as a mom, a senior lecturer, and a PhD student? What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was like doing everything and not doing one thing. It was like, am I doing anything right? But it all came together in the end, I would say. I started the PhD as a single young lady, and I intended to finish it that way.
As a single young lady?
But I finished it with 2 children. So, yeah, very different from the plan I had originally. But I think I pulled through because obviously I had support from people. My faith was there to help me, to keep me going, and ultimately just, perseverance as well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the easiest of things, in terms of, doing everything. COVID happened. I still had to collect my data, started off data collection face-to-face, then had to go online. So quite a lot. It was a journey packed with so much adventures. We made it.
Yeah, because I know the PhD is a very, very crazy journey. So imagine combining that being a lecturer and then being a mom as well. One can only just imagine what you pass through. But yeah, but you've been in academia for a while. You've been in academia for a while now. What has been the academic journey? What would you say has been your own experience? Has it been awesome? Do you think you should have even gone in earlier when you were 20? What do you think? So far, so good.
I think I'd say that I stumbled on academia.
Okay.
I wasn't really planning to. If you do public health especially if you've come from Nigeria or something, your idea of public health is working with like NGOs.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought, when I'll come to the UK, that's what I'll meet. But I came in and realized that, there's not so much NGOs as much as there are opportunities to do work in local authorities, because that's where bulk of the public health job, and also obviously nationally, there's a lot more presence in terms of, organizations and bodies. But to get into those organizations, you need to have experience, lots of experience in terms of, being able to analyze data, do all these things. So I didn't feel that, fresh from Nigeria, not much experience, I didn't really stand a chance, because most of my colleagues who were doing a master's students, who were UK home students, have been sponsored from their place of work. So I just saw academia as an opportunity to gain experience, especially research. So I came in through research, and I started doing I think research is really interesting. I really enjoyed research before I transitioned into academic post.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the fact that, I could do a lot of research on different things, write research papers, collaborate with people, bring in funding. And that's the dynamic part. That's the best part of academia. There's also the part of impacting knowledge and teaching, which is also great. But I am more driven towards research, as I would say, than the actual teaching itself.
Okay. So since you're more driven towards research, and your research right now, I think, is centered around health promotion. You are using social and physical and social environment. So why is physical and social environment, are these actually determinants of health? And if they are, how can you actually assess them to give an insight into the burden of non-communicable disease that you are trying to look at?
Yeah, so we know that so much is being done around, almost forcing people, like, taxation, sugar tax. Those are like top-down measures. You don't want people to be obese, and then you put taxes on food, taxes. I mean, they've got their own place, but I think there's also a place of enabling people to make healthier decisions, and that could be through infrastructure to support active life. It could be through the use of green space, making the green space more appealing for people to walk around the environment, the neighborhood. I think it could mean engagement with nature. So for me, what was paramount is being able to make use of that opportunities that can be afforded from the natural and physical environment to improve health and well-being, and behavior change. That's really a driving factor, because those are very key, important, wider determinants.
Oh, okay. Well, so but when it comes to physical activity, I read somewhere that physical inactivity is the leading risk factor for mortality worldwide. And then I started asking myself, what leads to physical inactivity? For example, I know a lot of people are on the go these days, but is it because a lot of people transition from going to work and then that most people are working from home? Like, what do you think leads to physical inactivity?
I think there could be a host of different factors. I mean, some of those factors could be cultural. I mean, there are some cultures that would say, they tend towards having a more sedentary lifestyle than others. In fact, there's some cultures. My research and my PhD was on the Somali community, and when I was interviewing someone from there, they said, you know what, it's going to be funny and weird to see a Somali man running, a 50-year-old Somali man running, as a sport. They'll be like, what's going on? Does this person not have children? That will almost like looking at it as, it could be mocked if he did that. So
it could be mocked, actually, really, for exercise.
Oh, yes. Of course, in terms of, this is not this year, that kind of feeling of, is this man not shameless? You have grandchildren, you're running up and down in running suits or something. Yeah. So there's a cultural feel to it, but not all cultures. But also there is obviously a convenience aspect to it. We are in a world where everything is convenient now for us. You want to post something, you don't even need to go into the post office anymore. You can ask them to pick it up from your house. Exactly. So you don't do anything, anymore. You've all the opportunities that we have, to exercise has been taken away from us in the name of convenience, and we're enjoying it, but we don't know how much impact it's having on us in terms of that sedentary lifestyle. And you touched on a very important one, which is at work.
Yeah.
Even if you have to, go to the office, which some people still do often. Most times, how do we commute? By car. And when we get into the office, we are stuck to our screen for 6 hours, probably take a break. Some of us are so bad that we even take our break in front of our screen. Yeah. Work is too busy. So we have shifted almost, as a result of development, as a result of different things, cultural and whatnot, into having a more sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah. But this thing you mentioned is actually true. Recently I didn't know. Someone actually brought it to my attention that you can actually just send an email or go on the internet and then get your email to come and pick up your mail. I did not know that. Yeah, because now imagine getting Royal Mail to come to your house to pick up your mail. If you want your grocery, you can just stay at home and then they deliver at home. Yeah, it makes life easy, yes, but it makes you lazy as well. Yeah, and I agree with that. So no wonder, because according to WHO, they mentioned that 1 in 3 adults are actually physically inactive, and I was questioning the data. I was like, no, people actually walk around, but now it makes sense to me. But I also saw somewhere that people of high economic status are more physically active compared to those in lower class. I think that disparity exists.
There could be a few reasons for that because if you take, for example, the Somali community I worked with, one of the things I talked to them about was why are you not being physically active? And many of them said, well, we working as taxi drivers. We need to make money. We've got family back home. We've got lots of dependents back home. So every spare time that we have, we just use that to work and get extra income. And so physical activity to them is an additional thing that will not benefit them financially.
So there's no in it.
So why would I spend time on it? But if I'm economically well off, I'm very well to do. I don't need to do extra shifts. I'm doing very well. I can afford to go to the gym first. I can pay for gym membership. But imagine somebody doing an extra shift to get money for the family, and then you're telling them to pay for gym membership, get to and use their time that they're supposed to use to make £10 per hour for exercise. So it's that kind of mentality in terms of when people think around it. So that's probably one of the reasons why there is that disparity in terms of economic stability and physical activity.
So do you think people of high socioeconomic status, like, do you think they have more hobbies than people of like people in the lower class? I know people in the lower class, they need to work more, get more shifts to feed their families. But when it comes to hobbies, do you think because of that, like people in high socioeconomic class, they have more hobbies than the lower?
I wouldn't say probably they have more, but I'd say probably they have more chances to find fulfillment in those hobbies.
Okay.
You could have a lot of dreams and aspirations and hobbies and not have time to even do any. But I guess if you are not worried about finances, you are doing very well, you don't necessarily you're not taking extra pressure of working. So you have the time to fulfill those things you want to do. You have the time to play football. You have the time to do things. But if you need to do a shift, if you were struggling, and doing an extra shift will be more appealing to you than going to play football. So I guess there probably is a time to be able to meet those hobbies, because they might very well like football and they might miss it, but they might just be thinking of, I'd have to give this up if I need to make the money.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. But you've mentioned the Somali people. I know your PhD was on Somali people, but going away from Somali people, like looking at ethnicities in general, do you think ethnicity actually influences or has an influence on health status and behavior?
Absolutely. There's lots of data around health inequalities and health inequality. I mean, you just only need to look at COVID-19 and see the impact of COVID-19, the disproportionate level of mortality among ethnic minorities compared to the white majorities and, white other groups. And that just gives you a startling reminder of inequalities, because there is a disproportionate impact on COVID and on most things. Obesity, for instance, people from South Asian groups and African groups are more likely to be obese, and they are more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than people from majority white ethnic groups in the UK. So I think, yes, absolutely, ethnicity is one of those determinants that impact on health inequalities, and not just on physical activity, which is inclusive. We're thinking about obesity. We're thinking about all the risk factors for non-communicable diseases. There are indications that ethnicity is an influential factor that predisposes people to higher risk.
Oh, interesting. So, but here in the UK now, so if ethnicity has actually influences health behavior, health inequality, like, do you think that's why physical activity levels are actually really low among the Black and minority ethnic groups compared to the general population? Do you think that's why?
I think that's probably one of the reasons why, like you say, it is. I think levels of physical activity among people from Black African Asian communities. There's quite a lot of factors that go into play. But I think, yes, like you're right, there is a disparity by ethnicity. And some of those factors, I've said the reasons could be cultural, it could be socioeconomic status. It could also be the fact that physical activity to many people is they don't really know the benefits until they are getting, for instance, people are pre-diabetic and they're being told that you need to start to work on this in order to prevent you becoming diabetic, and then they start to realize the benefits. So I guess people just think it's an additional thing. I mean, I grew up in Nigeria, and I remember when we see children playing football on the street, you see older people thinking they're wasting their life away, and people saying, oh, go inside, don't you have better things to do, go and study, go and do this. And we don't encourage people to exercise. We just feel like it's
a waste of time.
A waste of time. I'll just share a personal experience. When I bought my first bicycle, I've never cycled before in my life. So I came into the UK and I realized, I need to change this attitude and mindset. And I've been going about. I've not seen a black. I'd only seen one or two black women on the bicycle in Bristol, in the area where I lived. So I thought, this is not going to continue with me. I'm just going to change this. So I bought a bicycle. Thankfully there was a free coaching on how to cycle. I got a coach to help me. And with my third lesson, I was already cycling to work. And one day someone saw me on the road, someone I hold in so much high esteem. When you're from an African community, you have lots of elders. They saw me on the road. I didn't know they'd seen me. And when I got back home, I just received a call from them and said, what happened to your car? I'm like, nothing. Is it broken? No. So why were you on the bicycle? What happened? Are you okay? You shouldn't be on the bicycle when your car is fine. And I'm like, no, I chose to cycle because it's a form of exercise. And I almost had to school them about the fact that I don't have to be broke or not be able to fix my car before I cycle. So that is the kind of attitude and mindset that people have.
Yeah. But, I just remember something that happens back home. Imagine you have a car and you park your car and you decide, okay, let me just go for a walk or use the bus and go. People will be like, is there something wrong with Janet? why aren't you driving your car?
I know.
Yeah. But do you think if there's enough awareness in our communities, the Black, Asian, and other ethnic minorities, if there's an awareness for them to know that, like, being physically inactive actually contributes to the more prevalence of non-communicable diseases we actually see in this community, do you think it will make them to change their mind to say, okay, you know what, let's start walking, let's start exercising, let's start doing this or that, like cycling? Do you think?
I think awareness will be good. It will only scratch the surface because this problem is obviously deep-rooted in lifestyle. So raising awareness, definitely I promote it. I think, that's one way of going about it. And some of the work I've been doing as well in local authority as well has been reaching communities through religious groups, through organizations that have community presence. But I also think we need to go further. Then that's where the work I do around the built environment comes in, or the work around social community interventions, where you've got opportunities to work with community leaders. Have like one day of historical walks. I think some people do it. They just go around town. They meet up at the central locations and they try to get activity ingrained into daily living in doing so. So not just telling them about physical activity, but also having like a form of, okay, we are having this football match on this day, and we're taking people to come, can it's sponsored by this, it's free of charge. You don't have to pay, just turn up. And there's going to be food or fruits at the end of it. But I think another thing is how sustainable are these interventions, because we can't be doing this forever. But I think it's really just to get them to start getting to move a bit more in a way where it then becomes the norm for them to take the stairs if they see the escalator. Sometimes it just becomes a norm. When you see escalator, you just decide, well, I'll go with the stairs instead. So it's really just make it a gradual baby steps, I think.
Okay, fair. But you've already mentioned some of the things like awareness or some of the things you think that need to be done to remove these impediments and facilitate, like at least facilitate physical activity in this group of people. But um what are actually the barriers to physical activity among this group? What are the barriers we're actually seeing in these groups and in this community that actually make them to say, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna walk, walking is not for me. I know we've mentioned culture, we've mentioned socioeconomic status, but what are other barriers you think to
I think, yeah. I think there's quite a lot. I mean, lack of time. Weather is another one because obviously some of us have come from places where it almost feels like summer all year round. And you come into the UK, October, November, you're like, what's going on here? Um, if you've not been physically active during the summer period, it becomes difficult to carry on with the momentum or to start gaining momentum in winter.
winter?
Winter is where people are, who are sedentary, are probably more sedentary, because there is a perfect excuse, isn't it? It's too cold. So the weather plays a role, I think, in deterring people. But there are also some other factors, depending on what kind of community it is. I mean, communities that have got majority Muslim population, if you've got women there, they will not tend to use any mixed facilities. So we need to think around swimming pools. Some swimming, like for Bristol City Council, I know they used to organize what we call female-only swimming session. But when I was discussing with some African women who use it, and they were saying, well, it's female only, but the lifeguards are male. So Muslim women will not feel comfortable because either ways, it's yeah. So it's thinking around those facilities. Are they supporting physical activity? Are they enabling people to make that decision to be more physically active? Personally, the weather was an excuse that I gave for a long time. It's too cold. The weather is rubbish. But I think we work with what we have. COVID made us realize you can do a lot of exercise in your own home without actually going to the gym. And it's just for people to then take advantage of some of those things. Laziness, lack of motivation, like you said, some people cannot just be bothered. Lack of interest, anything that gets them sweaty, or anything, just not interested or don't see the need for it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually interesting. But the thing you mentioned about the Muslim ladies not like refusing to swim because the lifeguards are actually males as well. Do you think if we end up training people within these communities, females, to become lifeguard, do you think it's actually enhance and to encourage them to swim more?
I think it has the potential. I think it could be really useful. There was a case study I looked at of a member of the African community who decided to set up women-only basketball, almost like a basketball training session. Every week they meet. I think they meet twice a week. And this is a female-only club. The trainers are female, the players are all females. And they come in, they take off their hijabs, they're comfortable, there's no guy in there, and you find ladies of all, various age groups, people who are just, able to walk, those who are able to run, and they're all playing cheerfully. And the funniest thing was they were paying for the session. They were paying £2 at the time per session or per day. And so not only are they, giving up their time to come and do the sports, but they've also paid for it because they valued it. I think if we give people, if you're able to make that opportunity for them to participate in a comfortable way, I think people will take it up. I think there is an indication that they will take it up.
Oh, okay. Because if that's an impediment stopping these ladies from actually swimming, I think removing them may actually help. I see if we can train the ladies to become lifeguards as well. But is there any other thing apart from like swimming? We've talked about swimming, walking, cycling, basketball. Are there any other sport you think people in these communities would be more inclined to like be happy to take up?
I think I think people are, I mean, depending on the age group you talk to, I mean, obviously going to the gym is very popular among young adults, teenagers and young adults, regardless. I mean, even you find a lot of Black children, Asian children who are sort of in their late teens, going to the gym because it's trendy and it's cool as well. And, they want to show off. So you don't necessarily have the same type of problem with when you're talking about 40 plus or 50 plus. Yeah. But I think, some of them go to the gym, some like to run, but it's just about, okay, where are they going to run? Do they have parks and places that are safe for them to do so? There's also things around perception of safety. I remember talking to people who thought that their neighborhood was not safe. They would see drug canisters around, and so they did not feel comfortable to take a walk in their neighborhood after the close of work at 6 p.m. Yeah. So, because I think, you don't have to do like badminton or basketball before you are physically active. If you could do that, that's brilliant. But even things like walking, brisk walking, running, like you say, swimming, or the more kind of the ones you can do without having to pre-plan, or visiting somewhere, you can just do in your neighborhood. They also all add up, and they're very good forms of activity as well. But it's about recognizing the barriers. Because, for instance, the gym membership, it's also a barrier. I was looking the other day at some of the gyms, my aspirational gyms, and, look at David Lloyd's, and you're thinking about how much you're going to pay to be a member there. You're talking hundreds of pounds per month. Yeah. And if you're not the one, if you don't feel the regular gyms, you just have to rethink and say what am I doing. So even the regular gyms, I think the going rate is around £20 per month already for most gyms. So that's something which people are also going to consider. I'm not going to set up a direct debit of £20 a month for exercise. So it's one of the barriers as well. I just thought I'd chip that in.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So you mentioned people in their 50s, 40s. I understand they won't take up gym like the young people because going to the gym is trendy now. But think about it. Assuming your elderly parents now tell you they want to take up lawn tennis now, all right, for leisure, and unfortunately, like they are staying with you, unfortunately, because of your work schedule, you find you have to fix that into your schedule to actually find a way to take them there and make sure they get there on time because they actually need you to actually drive them to the place. How do you think you would navigate that to actually help them, to encourage them to actually be active?
So, I mean, like you say, that's also another challenge because sometimes people want to do things, but the easiest or the closest place to them is not so close. And,
exactly.
And you have to travel to do something. One of the ways I think is, I mean, if it's possible to go on a public transport to get there, it gives you more opportunity to be more active. But we know sometimes it might be tricky. A journey of 10 minutes by car, probably 1 hour by bus or something, depending on where you live. And that's where the role of, the council comes in terms of ensuring that there are opportunities for people to be able to exercise within their neighborhood. And, I know that with development now, when you're having massive development of house builders that are coming in to build lots of houses, it gets to a level where there are some mandatory things that need to be there. So depending on the size of the development, you're supposed to go and have parks, probably multiple parks, depending on the size. Yeah. So there are opportunities for the council to think around that in terms of planning, house building and planning, so that people have the opportunity to exercise. I went to the US for a holiday. So I went to the US on a holiday recently, and I noticed that, all neighborhoods that I visited had a clubhouse within a 5 to 10 minutes walking radius from where residential houses are. And that was one of those things which encouraged people to be, more to be active in those neighborhoods, because, the clubhouse had a gym, had a swimming pool, had tennis court, had communal space that you could rent. And there's no excuse to say it's actually far from me, because it was centrally located within a 5 to 10 minutes radius from residential houses. And I think that's the way we need to be thinking as well in the UK, in terms of giving people an opportunity to be able to access services and facilities that can help improve their health and well-being. They can improve their levels of physical activity. It's not great when the nearest shop to you is probably a 30-minute walk from you. That means you're not going to want to ever go to that shop walking or cycling. You probably want to go, by car. But if you could walk 15 minutes to the nearest shop to you, then there are more chances you're thinking, I'll walk down. And that's 15 minutes each way, which is 30 minutes. So you're doing that every day. Eventually, within 5 days, you're getting 150 minutes of physical activity. So I think the planning system can do a lot more in terms of helping people get more physically active. Yeah. And that's why we've seen some changes now. Many of the new developments now, when they're building houses or flats, they have bike storage, because they want people to be able to use and park their bikes safely. Yeah. And previously we didn't have that. Yeah. So we are seeing some changes, in terms of those kinds of infrastructures, but I think there's still a long way to go.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. But think about that. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Those people who actually have to do a lot of shifts, because of their socioeconomic status, they need money for their families. Is there a way we can actually encourage them, like while at work, while doing the shift, that like for them to do at least 10,000 steps? Is there a way we can do that?
Yeah, I think that's also workplace health strategies. And I think, unfortunately, employers are probably not paying as much attention as they need to in terms of well-being and promoting health and well-being in the workplace. So I think there's a lot that could be done in the workplace, whether that be through encouraging use of stairs rather than lift, especially if you're not, carrying anything heavy or something. But also that could be in terms of meetings. So I've seen some videos of people having meetings where everyone is standing or where everyone is walking, and small group, taking a walk and having a meeting and discussing. So there are some changes that we can do in the workplace, but also in terms of how people get to work. So if you know that your work is, obviously you've got a very long shift, you've not got lots of opportunities to after work to do exercise, could you then incorporate it into your work commute? Could you go to work, through public transport and, through a bit of walking as well? And we're not just doing that for physical activity, we're also doing that for the environment, in the sense that there's lesser cars on the road if we don't need to. So we need to be thinking around things that are mutually beneficial. And I think there's a lot of scope for us to engage with the employers. I'm talking about public health, engaging with employers to promote healthier practices in the workplace.
Fair. Interesting. Because I've been thinking about it, like if they can't, if they don't have the time, because I know after doing a long shift, 10 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, they'll be so tired when they get home too. Then now I'm wondering if it could actually be inculcated into their routine and see if they can do 10,000 steps at work. Okay, but is there anything else you think we can do? Is there anything else you think we can do to actually encourage people, regardless of the age? I know we've talked about so many things, but is there anything else you think we can do at this stage? Like, you didn't think we can add, we need to go, do you think we can do door-to-door campaign, or there's no need for that? What do you think? Is there anything else you think we can do?
I think depending on, I wish we had all the budgets and resources. I'm talking as wearing a public health hat on in terms of working in local authority. I think, there's quite a lot that we could do to engage with communities, to get them more physically active. And I think the strategy for each community would differ depending on, things that we know about the community or things that the community tell us about themselves. So I'm thinking around, for instance, if you've got elderly people, and you're not going to tell them, a 65-year-old man that has never run since he was probably 20 to start running. You probably want to tell them, we're doing a walk, a community walk, and people will join, and just say we're walking from here to here, and increasing it. So we have lots, and there's also something called Couch to 5K. It's an NHS application to get people who are on 0% of physical activity to start to run 5 kilometers, from 0 to 5 kilometers. So the Couch to 5K is a really good way of getting people more active as well. It's obviously the NHS set that up for, people who are at very sedentary levels of inactivity to become more active progressively. I think the key word is progressively, because sometimes we want to run before we walk, and that's just gets people doing a little bit, and every day it builds more on it. It just gives them opportunity to do a little bit more until they start to run 5 kilometers, and you're wondering, how is that possible? So, there's lots of success stories. I personally know someone, a GP, who has used it before, and had told me that's very transformative for her. It was one of the best decisions she made, and it helped her not just lose weight, to gain more confidence, to be able to run that long. And so there are those kinds of applications where people can use self-directed, and it's free, so you can't, you don't need to worry about, obviously, membership of any gym to pay for anything. So I think we can do that. We can promote things like that, but we can come together as community groups, as a social network, as a social group, and have some days where we plan something, physical activity, a walk, a run, skipping, whatever it is that is fun, so or that will bring the community together. And that way we are just, not just enhancing our physical health, but even mental health as well, because it's about community bonding, community spirit as well, and looking after one another. So I think on an individual note, we can be advocates for, to bring things together. We can also be advocates, to talk to the council, in terms of services that we have, and discuss what options, opportunities there are to improve those facilities. So I think there's quite a lot we could do, depending on, and the intervention or the type of activity or type of approach will depend on the age group. And will depend on what the goal is. I know that there's been times where in my church we've had Zumba as a Zumba class. Someone will come on a Saturday and they will say, there's going to be a Zumba class, and everyone should come prepared for it. And I think we can be doing that, and I don't think we need to, because for most people they'll be like, that's another Saturday gone. But if you call them to come for Bible study, they will come. So can we incorporate activity into things like that?
Yeah.
So, could we have a 15 minutes during the Bible study where we just go around walking and come back in, or we stand for it, or we, it's whatever organization we find ourselves in, either in the workplace, community groups, it's trying to get that message across.
Yeah, I agree. For us to actually change this, health behavior within this community, I think it will be a collective effort. Everybody,
Mhm.
all hands on deck. The church, the mosques, everybody. Because some people, if spirituality is their thing, that it is more important to them than physical activity. How is it? What can we do to actually merge the physical activity with spirituality, so that when they go to church or the mosque, they can actually do some exercise as well? I agree. But Dr. Janet, but this is all the time we have for this week. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always passionate about this thing. So if you leave me, I'll keep talking.
Fair, fair. But I hope you had fun on the podcast today anyway.
Yes, it was great. Thanks a lot for having me. Really, really lovely discussions. And yeah, I hope obviously people hearing will be able to make one or two steps. And, if anyone wants to reach out, happy for them to contact and to talk about anything further.
Yeah. So if they want to reach out to you, so how can they reach out? Via email, LinkedIn?
Yes.
How?
Well, that's true. I've got a LinkedIn profile. I almost forgot that, but LinkedIn will be fine. I can pick it up.
Okay. All right. No worries. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Yes, let's do this. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.